Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast. I am joining you today with Daniel Theobald. He is the CEO of Vecna Robotics and also a previous guest on the show as well. We've talked to Vecna a few different times and a few different people from Vecna. We even did a visit up there as well. We recently talked to Daniel at Modex, and when we talked to him, the whole pandemic and everything, I think, was just pretty much in its infancy. So we're going to talk to Daniel today about, we'll get a little brief overview of what Vecna does for new listeners, but we'll also talk a little bit about how things are changing throughout the pandemic and what that means for AMRs and how automation and robotics is playing a bigger role and coming in bigger demand now during the pandemic as well. So Daniel, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing all right. How's everything going for you? It's pandemic and all that.
Well, no question that, the pandemic has created a whole host of challenges for individuals and businesses around the world, and certainly our hearts go out to people who are hardest hit and struggling. One of the things that has been nice, I think, is that it's really helped to bring communities together. It's helped turn the attention to, helping people, which has been something that's been near and dear to our heart at Vecna Robotics since the beginning. We have a community service policy where we encourage our employees to spend 10% of their work week contributing to community service causes. So it's been very gratifying to see our team really reach out and help those in need during this time of challenge for so many.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I love that initiative. I think that's a great thing to do, that you guys are giving back to the community as well and allowing your employees to do that too. So why don't you tell us, I guess, a little bit before we get into the whole discussion, just give us a little brief overview of what it is you guys do at Vecna for those that might not be familiar.
Yeah, so at Vecna Robotics, we basically allow you to take traditional material handling equipment and make it operate in a driverless fashion. Mm-hmm. So think automated forklift, a driverless forklift, or a driverless tugger. Our technology is able to safely operate these larger vehicles and also smaller vehicles, all the way down to some of the smaller robots you might see running around facilities these days doing order fulfillment and that type of thing. But to summarize, it's basically moving things in a warehouse or a manufacturing facility from point A to point B reliably, safely, 24/7.
Okay, great. And definitely really interesting stuff. It's a really nice product and solution. I had the opportunity and the chance to go visit you guys up there and check it out in your little demo warehouse, and it's really, really cool stuff. So, I think that, obviously, I guess one of the big things surrounding this pandemic, right, is that people have been stuck at home. They haven't been going into the office. They've been working from home, all these different things. And like you said, they have more time to be with family. They have more time to be with the community. But for some people in some industries, like our industry in distribution and fulfillment, they're actually in more demand. And there isn't that, I guess, chance for people to work from home, really. And that's because people are at home and people are demanding more things online. They're ordering online simply because stores are closed and they can't get them in the brick and mortar option. So I'm curious, it's a complex situation really for these companies as they try to navigate the idea of social distancing, which we all become so familiar with now with the 6 feet apart. within a warehouse or within a fulfillment center. So how do you think this whole notion and just the pandemic itself has kind of started to drive and create a higher demand for AMRs?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think there's a number of parts to it. It starts with how do you get the robots there in the first place? Mm-hmm. And it used to be that deploying robots in a facility was a very labor-intensive task. It used to be that you'd have to send a team of engineers there. They'd have to have people cutting concrete and installing infrastructure and replacing things, and et cetera. What we've done over the past couple of decades is design a navigation system that doesn't require any of that. We call it infrastructure free or zero infrastructure.
Okay.
Our robots are able to operate the equipment much more like a human would. It basically looks around, sees where it is, understands where it is, and then is able to, drive, navigate safely because it has that understanding. I think probably most people don't realize this, but most of the robots, most of the more traditional robots, what we've called AGVs or automated guided vehicles, really have no concept of where they are. All they know is that they are following a line.
Right.
And, that worked in the past for very static situations where you were designing a manufacturing plant and, that robot just had to drive that exact path hundreds of thousands of times. It was never going to change. But that world is really gone now with the flexibility that is everybody realizes they need to pivot what they're doing based on events like this. It's hard to install something that's so rigid and actually have it, fully appreciate or provide its full value before you need to change it. So this is why our system has really helped, because basically the robot is everything you need and a good network connection. So instead of having to send an army of workers to, install this new infrastructure, what we're able to do now is send a robot, through your favorite shipper, shows up on your loading dock, and then there's basically 3 steps. You connect, 4 steps actually. I take that back. There are 4 steps. You connect it to the network. Then the robot will safely navigate around the facility to create a map. We use that map to simulate a workflow in our simulation system. So we basically build a 3D model of your facility, and then work with you remotely, right? We don't have anyone on site. Work with you remotely to say, okay, where are the different pick and drop locations, right? Where do I need to pick up a pallet? Where do I need to drop it off? Let's mark all the different loading docks, all the different places the robot might need to go. So we simulate all that. We get that all configured in the system. And then once that's all done, we basically turn it on. And from that point forward, we can keep adding as many robots as you want, and you don't have to do any of those steps again. And again, this is actually fairly unique. A number of our competitors require you to train each robot individually. So it's been really good in the sense to sort of force us to take that step to be able to do all of this work completely remotely, to get a new robot up and operating in your facility without us ever having to send anyone there. Now, obviously, we've got people all over the country, all over the world, who are ready to jump in and help and be on site at a moment's notice. But it's nice to have this option. So that's sort of piece number one. How do you get the robots there and operating in this COVID world? And then the second piece is, how do those robots help with social distancing in the warehouse? And there are a number of ways. One is, first of all, the robots are able to act as a buffer between staff. So in the past, for example, at a large shipper, we would see a person loading what we call non-conveyable large items that people are buying online these days that used to go to a big warehouse for, like an exercise bike or kayak or a carpet or a mattress or tires. Right, we're shipping things through couriers like FedEx and UPS and DHL that those networks were never really intended to handle.
Right.
So for those bigger items, they will now load those onto what we call a tugger. It's sort of a a tow vehicle with a number of trailers behind it. So they'll take that big carpet, load it in, the kayak, they'll load it in, all these different things, because they have to get it from the loading dock from the truck that brought it in to where each of those items need to go, the loading dock each of those need to go to get it out to the right place. So it used to be that, the person would load up, then they'd get on the tow tractor, take it where it needs to go, and then, meet up with the other people who are going to help unload it. Mm-hmm. Now what they can do is they can have that distance. They can have a person load it up, press a button, the self-driving vehicle takes it where it needs to go, and then the group on the other side are able to unload it, so they never have to, interact directly. So that certainly helps. And there's another area which is really important, because as we've implemented that first workflow, what we found is that just like the human drivers, a lot of times the robots were waiting. They were sitting there waiting to be loaded or unloaded, or waiting in a line to get to the front of the line so that somebody could unload them. Right. And so we saw that there was just a lot of wasted time, a lot of inefficient use of resources. So we have a system called Pivotal Orchestration. Pivotal is our software that runs all of our robots. It's that piece that learns, that makes the robots get smarter every day, do their jobs better. But it also helps to organize and optimize the work that's occurring in the facility. This may get a little technical, but it's a constraint-based optimization engine. And what that means is you basically say, here are the rules that you can't violate. And now give me the best solution you can that doesn't violate those rules. So you might say, well, one rule is that, the robot can only drive this fast because you want it to go safely. Another rule is that, the robot can only carry this much at a time. And so it uses that information to try and plan out how to get the work done. But because it's a general purpose constraint optimization engine, it also has the ability to deal with other constraints. So, for example, we can use the system to track not just where the robots are, but to also track where the human workers are. It understands what the robots are good at. It understands what the humans are good at. And if you put in a constraint to say, hey, don't have humans getting within 6 feet of each other, so, specifically don't assign tasks to 2 human beings that will require them to be close to each other. Uh-huh. The engine can take that new constraint into account as it plans out the plan for how to get the work done. So it's really exciting, because it's not what we would call hard coded, where some programmer has to go in and build all of this hard coded logic to make that happen. You just add this new constraint into the system, and it will find solutions where it will assign tasks, some tasks to robots, some tasks to humans, some tasks to manually operated equipment, and it'll find the best solution given all the different constraints. So that can help with the social distancing thing. Mm-hmm. But the really exciting part about it as well is that it allows you to get more done with fewer resources, or get more done with the same amount of resources. And what that means is when businesses hit these off-season peaks, normally around Christmas time, right, or the holidays, they will get, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, sometimes even up to 5 times the volume pushing through their network. Well, most of our customers have been reporting holiday peak volumes, throughout most of this COVID epidemic. Right. But they've had the added challenge that they don't have enough workers, and the workers can't get close to each other. So it's really been sort of a perfect storm for them.
Very complicated.
So the idea of getting more done with the same amount of resources is really appealing to people. And, it all comes down to the fact that humans are not great at what I would call system-wide or global optimization. Humans are great at local optimization, right? Do I pick up that box first or that box first? Mm. Well, I'm going to pick up that box first because, once I move that box, it'll be easier to get to the other box. So we're great at doing that kind of stuff in our head, but it may be that it's box C over there, that if I could just get that to loading dock, A, in the next 5 minutes, it would unlock a whole other bunch of things that could get done more efficiently, right? So it's sort of this system-wide performance, right? Because there might be a truck waiting, and the truck is just waiting for that one more box, right, and that's holding up, maybe 50 other things. So picking up box A before box B isn't really helping the overall system go faster. But if I picked up box C and got it to that dock, then I'm helping the system. And that's why having this pivotal orchestration engine that understands, what needs to get done at the whole facility level. It understands what resources there are to get that work done, and is able to make intelligent real-time assignments. It's kind of like an Uber ride-sharing app in a sense.
Okay.
You've got riders that all need rides, and you've got drivers that want to provide rides, and it's sort of doing the ideal matching. Obviously, a lot more complicated than that, but that's one way to think about it.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Definitely. So, I like the fact that you can program it, like you said, especially during these times, to keep employees just from, I guess employees don't even realize that, they're not being brought close together to do the certain tasks. And so the robot itself is, I guess it's communicating to the other robots within the facility as well throughout the day, I guess, so that they are working together.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, all of the robots are constantly reporting their location, what they're working on, how much of that current task they've completed, and if they're going to be available to take on another task when they finish this one. So again, the pivotal orchestration engine is constantly planning ahead. It's sort of like a grandmaster chess player. Mm-hmm. It's looking at the board. It knows all of the work that needs to get done because it's integrated with the warehouse management system or the manufacturing execution systems, or what we call generically a demand generator. Something is generating demand for work. And then Pivotal is saying, okay, I've got demand for work. I've got agents, we call them, agents that can do work, whether it's, human workers, manually operated equipment, or robots from us or robots from other vendors. And how do we get that work done most efficiently?
Interesting. So robots from other vendors, how does that communication work between, I guess, the Vecna robots and then these other ones?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a lot of what we've been doing, one of my other roles is co-founder and president of an organization called Mass Robotics. Right. And at Mass Robotics, it's an industry organization that has a mission of trying to help the robotics industry move forward more quickly. Okay. One of the best ways to do that is through interoperability standards. If you look at a number of other industries, computers, cell phones, integrated circuits, the list can go on and on. Those industries really took off when there was a standard that multiple vendors were able to conform to. Because that allows customers to buy with more confidence. They know that their different equipment's going to work together, et cetera. So Mass Robotics has been working on the Mass Robotics Interoperability Standard. There's a web page up that has more information about that. And that's all about allowing multiple robots from multiple vendors to communicate effectively this basic information we already talked about. Where am I? What is my footprint? How big am I? How fast do I move? Do I have a current task that I'm doing? What is percent completion on that task? And, am I available to take another task after that? And with that basic information, then an optimization engine can, sort of do the pairing. And the neat thing is that optimization engine learns over time. So, if you have a particular a robot that, is really good at moving a pallet from loading dock A to C, and it consistently does it faster than, the manually operated equipment or maybe a different robot, the system will over time learn that, if that particular piece of equipment is available, we're gonna get optimal results assigning that task to that piece of equipment. And it's interesting, and there's certainly some social issues along with this that will need to be figured out. But it can do the same for human workers, because it will understand that a particular worker is really enjoys doing a particular type of task, maybe more than another type of task, and they're better at it. They do it more quickly, more effectively, and because it's kind of a bidding system, we give the human workers a tremendous amount of freedom and flexibility in most cases to select the tasks that they're most interested in doing, because we find that when people have the ability to have that freedom, you typically get better productivity out of them. So it's sort of, there's some gamification possibilities there as well, which keep people motivated and having fun. What we don't want to do is turn humans into robots. What we firmly believe at Vecna Robotics is that robots are there to empower humans, to supercharge human productivity, and to allow humans to be more human, to use our unique human abilities of problem solving and creativity, rather than just having humans do rote tasks that don't require any kind of creativity or intelligence.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's super important when it comes to, like you said, productivity, because it keeps the day more interesting and it's not so monotonous. And I think that really
which is a huge issue. Yeah. Holding on to workers, I think, is one of the biggest problems that many of our customers have, and it's and they keep raising wages. They doing everything they can, but a lot of the tasks that are more traditional in these type of facilities are just not super fun. And it was really exciting for me when we were deploying robots at a large shipper, and one of the workers who was getting trained on the system, had a little bit of a negative attitude at first. He's like, robots, so when are we going to get our pink cards? And the supervisor there had a very thoughtful answer. He said, look, we are not bringing robots in to replace you. We need you. We're bringing in robots to make it so that your job is more fun, to make it so that you can, spend more of your time being productive and less of your time doing, boring, annoying tasks. So the whole reason we're bringing in robots is because we want to keep you. We want your job to be more enjoyable. And the attitude just changed like that. And then he started, programming the robot from the touch screen, okay, well, this looks pretty cool. And then he said, hey, so if I learn how to operate this robot, do you think I could go and train other people how to operate it? So you saw this really exciting flip from, this robot is a threat to me and it's going to take my job, to, I think, the reality, the truth of it, which is this robot can really help me advance my career.
Yeah.
And that was really exciting dynamic for me to see.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to share, and I love that case there, and because I think so many people still are kind of in that train of thought that robots are gonna take jobs, right? And I think people like you guys at Vecna, I think you guys are really, like you said, just trying to empower humans more, and I think that example also is kind of a testament to how easy it is becoming to kind of work with these robots, because you said, he was right there and he's just kind of programming it right on the touchscreen, right? So talk to us a little bit, I guess, about that. And you're talking about the constraints earlier and how to set them. I mean, is that a fairly simple thing to learn for people to do within their own facility?
I would say more and more that's becoming true. This is just, it's still early on, a lot of the technology, and so we're in the early stages of the adoption curve. So we're learning a lot. We're learning very quickly, and that's really one of our goals at Vecna Robotics, is to learn as fast as possible. So we're constantly giving more features to those end users at all different levels. The staff member working on the floor, to the shift supervisor, manager, all the way up. So, right now, adding in complex constraints, is something that takes a highly trained that understands the system. But that will change over time, as it always does with any technology. I think, I was talking to somebody else the other day, and I thought he made a really good point, which is a lot of times people are afraid that, they don't have staff. They don't have staff that are highly educated enough to operate robots.
Mm-hmm.
And, people should just get that completely out of their head. The robots they're easy to use, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
You don't need a graduate degree. You don't need a college degree. You don't even need a high school degree. What you need is just people who are interested in learning something new. And if you have that, they will have absolutely no problem operating these robots, within 10, 15 minutes. It's really that easy. And, of course, we provide full 24/7 support, phone support, boots on the ground when necessary. So, there is plenty of help if needed. But, what we found is that somebody will think they're going to need help, and then, within a day or two, they're the expert in their facility, and everybody else is coming to them and, sort of asking them questions. And so it's really easy. And I think the key here is it's time to get started now.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a facility and you're thinking, well, let's wait and see what happens with this whole robot thing, that was a reasonable approach, I'd say, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe even 3 years ago. Now, that attitude is going to end your business, unfortunately, to just be very straightforward about it, because it does take time to adopt this new technology. You can't just snap your fingers, because, there are often times when it does create lots of opportunities for improvement, optimization, thinking about the way you do things differently. And so, that's a process that takes some time and needs to be started. If you start, 2 years from now, it's going to be really hard to catch up because your competitors started last year. So I think the number one message I give to people is, pick a vendor and get started now. It's just something that you've got to start investing in.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's really good advice, because, like you said, it's people are already started. People are already there. Some people are already on to the next thing, right? So, it's really important, I think, to just start embracing it, and because it's here to stay. Without a doubt. We were at Modex, and everywhere you look, it's robotics and automation. So, it's not going anywhere. It's no longer just a cool thing that's in the future, right? It's a present.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It used to be you go to those shows and you see a robot here or there, and everybody's like, that stuff's not ready yet.
Yeah.
Again, that was true at the time, but it's no longer true. If you're saying it's not ready yet, then that's when you probably haven't found the right vendor. And it's probably worth noting that there are a lot of, there are a lot of startups out there who are, filled with smart people and doing great stuff, but may not be fully ready for prime time yet. So, if you have one bad experience, try again. As they say, fail early, fail often. But that's best accomplished by taking small bites, in a sense. So get started now, but you don't have to boil the ocean, I guess, is the message. Do something small to get started, 1 or 2 robots. And I think that's one of the really nice things, some feedback we've gotten about ours is that you can insert, just a handful of robots into an existing operation. You don't have to sort of greenfield, tear out your entire warehouse and start from scratch. So, get started.
Yeah. That's one of the, I think the nice things about versus the AGV, the implementation is fairly easy. And like you said, you don't have to tear out all this stuff to make way for a whole new platform, a whole new way of doing things. Like, you can just implement this into a task that's already existing that a human does, but it's very easy to get started, like you said in the beginning. So really interesting stuff. And I love how actually, I think you said before that there's some silver lining, right, to this whole pandemic thing, where it's kind of, I guess, displaying new opportunities, and it's creating ways for people to do business a little differently. And I think a lot of it is gonna stick for the long way. So it's interesting to see just how much the demand has increased for AMRs and robotics within fulfillment centers, just to keep up with demand, and also deal with, like you had mentioned, dealing with not only keeping workers but also dealing with shortage of workers too, just because people are getting sick or people are taking the leave. All those different things. So really interesting stuff. So how can people, if they're listening and they just listen to your great advice and they're like, okay, I need to get into robotics now, how can they get more information on Vecna and get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so VecnaRobotics.com. You got to put Vecna Robotics. Vecna.com is a different company. That's
Okay.
Vecna Robotics. And just go to our website, and I will also point out that Mass Robotics can be a tremendous resource. Mass Robotics is a nonprofit, third-party, independent organization, with a nonprofit mission to help customers, investors, technologists, solve automation problems. So certainly feel free to contact Mass Robotics too and say, hey, we've got this particular workflow or issue we're trying to solve. There's, I don't know how many now. I think there's, getting close to 500 different organizations that are either robotics or robotics related organizations that are part of the Mass Robotics ecosystem. So Mass Robotics is really great at saying, you should talk to, these 5 companies. And also, I'd say if anyone is interested in participating or getting involved with the Mass Robotics Interoperability Standard, reach out as well. Happy to help personally whenever I can. I take my role as president of Mass Robotics very seriously. So while my day job is Vecna, my community service work I do that Vecna pays me for, thankfully, is my work with Mass Robotics. So I'm always happy to give advice, help steer people in the right direction, help separate fact from fiction. And so, people are more than welcome to reach out to Vecna, and they can get in touch with me through any number of channels there.
Okay, awesome. And we'll definitely put all that information on thenewwarehouse.com as well, so people can reference it. So Daniel, thank you so much for joining us and giving us, this pandemic update, unexpected update from when we had talked at Modex, but good to hear that, some opportunities being found, and robotics are becoming more embraced and also helping us through this time as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. And people should also feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's oftentimes a great place to connect. And happy to help anytime.
All right, great. We'll put your LinkedIn at thenewwarehouse.com as well.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.